everyone, it's Patty. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. For today's card project, I'm using products that I've probably had for a year. I am using the Pink Fresh Studio, the Magic Is In You stencil, and Waffle Flowers Nested Dome dies. I've had the dies for a while, and those are really cool because you can make like a cloche, and then with these stencils, it's foliage and mushrooms. It's almost like a foresty kind of theme. So to get started, I grabbed some distressed oxides, and for the base of the mushrooms, I am using antique linen and going over all the little bits. This stencils so fast, and it's so cute. So cleaning up stencil layer 1, and then on to 2, and then this does the mushroom tops. And so I'm using, for the pinky red ones, not the one I'm doing right there, but the other two I did Worn Lipstick and Festive Berries, and the larger one is Victorian Velvet and Seedless Preserves. So what I did was start with a lighter color kind of on the base, and then I go around the edges with the darker color. So there's some shading, there's some lights, there's darkness, and it turned out really cute. Pretty happy with that. Come back in with some Victorian Velvet over the Seedless Preserves just to get a better blend. And then moving on to the Festive Berries for the little mushrooms. And just going around the edges, making sure I leave some highlights. And then just cleaning up the stencil. And then I guess I feel like it needed a little more blending. The next stencil has the shadows for the stem on the mushrooms, and I used Vintage Photo for that little bit. But there's also these cute little diamonds and circles and all of that on this stencil. So I decided, instead of drawing little dots onto the mushrooms, I would use those as the dots that mushrooms have, and it turned out so cute. I just love it. So now I'm deciding what to do on the next mushroom. It was just nice. The diamond adds a little different flavor than just having dots on a mushroom. And you can certainly come in with a white pen or something and add dots, but I did not want to do that. And so the mushrooms were done, and I fussy cut those out. And now I'm doing the foliage portion of the stencils. And so for the leaves, I decided to do that blue-green that I'm using right there is Evergreen Bough. And I also used Bundled Sage, Rustic Wilderness, and Forest Moss. So like I said, I'm starting out with the Evergreen Bough, and I don't use a lot of it. I use it on this, and then I use it as accents on the leaves. So there's not a ton of it in the foliage, but you know, that blue-green just adds something. Everything is not so monochromatic when you do that. And now I'm coming in with the Bundled Sage, and I'm going to do, I believe, quite a bit of the stencil with this. So I love that little part right down there. Sorry, I had to get a drink of water. I've had a tickle all day. Love that little part of the earth right there. I think it looks really good. So I believe I'm doing this with the Bundled Sage, and then for the accents on these, I come in with Forest Moss. Nope, lied to you. I switched to Rustic Wilderness. So for the middle parts of the leaves, I'm using Rustic Wilderness. And so I'm only showing one set of leaves, but I did do 2 sets of leaves, just so that I had extra. And I did end up with a couple extra leaves that I tucked away for another project. So then coming in with the final stencil, and this adds accents to the ground cover and accents on the leaves. And so I do believe I used Forest Moss on all of these. On the other set of leaves, I used a lot more bundled sage. So on these, I used a lot more forest moss just to differentiate on the leaves. So I'm thinking, no, I don't need this anymore. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to use it. So yeah, this last stencil was all forest moss. So that's how the leaves turned out. So I set those aside, cut them out later. So I'm making my background panel now, and I am using bundled sage and evergreen bough on this panel. And I was using a brush, and then I wised up and went and grabbed a blending foam. Worked so much better, so much faster. So I'm using some really cheap paper here. I think it's from Recollections. It was just a scrap from a last leftover different project that I had done, non-inky. And so it's not blending as well as it could, but it's mostly going to be covered anyway, and it does smooth out as it dries, so not a big deal. But it's due to the horrible cardstock that I was using for this, but I wanted to use up that last little piece. So I'm cutting this down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I missed filming, and I apologize, but you can see all of my items cut out and on some press and seal. So I had laid everything out the way I liked it and then picked it up with some press and seal. And I forgot to turn the camera on for that part, and I apologize. So I made a mistake here, but I ended up using everything anyway. So I used the third largest nested dome die from Waffle Flower, and it tore the paper. The tape tore the paper. So when I was rethinking, like, oh crap, I got to try this again, I decided, you know what, I'm going to use it and I'm going to build layers up on top of the background instead of cutting into the card base like I did. So I'm going to use the part that I already cut the dome out of, but I'm going to cut the card base apart and use that other half and cut a dome out of it. So I ended up cutting out 4 dome panels and gluing them all together to get dimension, and it turned out better than I thought it was. So I was pretty happy with that. I think I'm grabbing another piece of cardstock just to get one more cut out there. All right, so now I'm going to take my Barely Arts glue, and I'm starting with the one, I believe, that got all torn up when I removed the tape. So that'll be my bottom layer. And then we're putting another one on top of that. Letting everything dry for just a minute. And then I'm going to come back and glue the next one with my Barely Arts glue. Then we'll let that dry, and then we will move on to the last one. So I let that dry for about 2 minutes, and now I'm taking the weights off my stamping bricks there, and then trimming the arched dome panel just so that no edges show through, keeping it clean there. And then I'm going to glue that onto the other card panel, the ink blended card panel, and put my stamping blocks on those. Let it dry for a minute. So now I'm going to take the layout, and on the back leaves, I'm going to just adhere those directly to the card base or card panel. So I'm lining it up the way I want it. I'm pressing it down, letting the glue hold it, and then I'm going to peel the rest of it away from the leaves. So the leaves are exactly where I want them. And now I'm taking my Barely Arts glue and adhering everything else together the best I can so that it will move nicely as one piece. And then I'm going to use about 1,000,002 little dimensional pieces on the background. It had just the right dimension. It wasn't, the 3M strip foam just wasn't quite for the dimension I wanted. I wanted I wanted it to stick out a little further than the stacked dome portion, but not as much as 3M foam would have made it. So these little squares were just the right size. And then I have to peel off the backing on 1,000,002 little foam squares. So you can see as you look at the card panel that the oxide ink really is starting to smooth out and not look so blotchy as it did when I finished blending. I think I have had this foam tape since like the year 2000. I've just had these little things forever. Time to use them up. And then I thought I might need a little wiggle room, so I'm putting Barely Arts glue on the back of each of these little foam squares as well. So then I'm picking up the plastic wrap, adhering everything down, peeling it off, came off beautifully. Just needed to glue that one little stem down. And so everything is glued down. So I could have added a little more greenery, but I didn't feel like it added anything. I mean, I had like 3 or 4 pieces left, probably 3. And it just didn't add anything. So I mean, I probably could have left those other 2 pieces on, but the one at the top didn't really do anything for me. So anyway, I just took it all off and I thought, all right, time for a sentiment. So the sentiment is from Sizzix and the die set is called Flowers in Umbrella. And it's got the cute little bird, but I love the sentiment. I love the font. So this is actually me putting the gold cardstock, which is Recollections gold cardstock, onto some scrap white, and I cut out 2 layers in the white, so the gold is actually the 3rd layer. So the With Love is 3 layers high. So it's not as high as the domed cutouts, but it's got some dimension as well. So I like this card because it isn't too feminine. I would give this to, I know there's purple and pink on it, but I would give this to a certain guys, not any guy, but certain guys. I think it turned out really cute. So adding the sentiment, getting that down, I had already stacked the 2 whites and the gold for the tittle on with. So I'll get that on there too. All right, and then we're going to put that on and let it dry for, I let it dry for 2 or 3 minutes. Cleaning out the nozzle on my glue. And then I wrote down Wink of Stella, but that's not it. It is Creative Memories gold glitter brush. I guess I do that later. So I'm using Spellbinder's Fashion Gold beads to add little accents around the mushrooms. I didn't want any on the mushrooms. I wanted it to accent the mushrooms, so it went all around. I think I did like 8 or 9 of those little embellishments on the card. think that's the last gold embellishment. And now I'll dig for the Creative Memories glitter pen. And it is the gold. It's not like gold paint over it. I'm off to the side getting it running again. But it's just a nice little gold shimmer. I didn't want a clear shimmer. I wanted the gold on there to go with the rest of the card. So just did the mushroom tops. I didn't do the stems. There, you can kind of see the shimmer. It turned out so cute with the shimmer. And so that's going to complete my card project for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.